Right now, the most valuable company on the entire planet isn't the one that makes your phone. It isn't the one that sells you everything online. It's a company that makes something you have probably never seen, never touched, and couldn't buy at a store even if you wanted to. It's worth around $5 trillion. The first company in history to ever be worth that much. More than Apple, more than anyone, ever. And here's the funny part. 30 years ago, it was 3 guys in a booth at a Denny's, selling chips to make video games look prettier, and it almost went out of business. This is the story of NVIDIA, and how a company that made toys for gamers accidentally became the single most important company in the world. And I'm going to explain the whole thing like you're 6. So let's start with the only question that matters. What does NVIDIA actually make? To understand that, you need to understand 2 kinds of brains a computer can have. And I'm going to use cooks. Imagine you have one chef. Not just any chef. A genius. He can cook literally anything. A souffle, a steak, a 5-layer cake. But he has one rule. He can only make one dish at a time. He's incredibly fast and incredibly smart, but he does things one after another after another. That chef is called a CPU. It's the normal brain inside every computer, and for decades, it ran the whole world. When you needed something clever done, the genius chef did it, one task at a time, really fast. Now imagine something completely different. Instead of one genius, you have an army, 1,000 tiny cooks. And each little cook is kind of dumb. All any of them can do is fry 1 egg. That's it, 1 egg. But there are 1,000 of them, and they all fry their eggs at the exact same time. Ask the genius chef to fry 1,000 eggs, and he'll do it one by one and take forever. Ask the army, and boom, 1,000 eggs, all at once, instantly. That army of tiny cooks is called a GPU. And that is the thing NVIDIA makes. Now, why would anyone want an army of dumb little cooks instead of one genius? Well, in 1993, the answer was simple. Video games. Think about what a video game screen actually is. It's millions of tiny colored dots, pixels, and every single one has to be figured out and drawn many times per second to make the picture move. That's not one hard problem. It's millions of tiny, almost identical, easy problems, all needing to happen at the exact same moment. The genius chef, doing them one at a time, chokes. But the army of 1,000 tiny cooks? That's exactly what they're built for. Millions of little dots, all painted at once. That's why the GPU was born, to make games look amazing. And that's where our 3 guys at the Denny's come in. In 1993, Jensen Huang and 2 engineer friends sat in that booth and started NVIDIA. Their whole plan was to build the best army of tiny cooks chip for video games. And for years, that's exactly what they did. Their chips, called GeForce, made games look incredible. They even powered the original Xbox. But it was a brutal business. Making these chips was hard. Competitors were everywhere, and NVIDIA nearly went bankrupt more than once in the 1990s. For a long time, they were just a successful-ish gaming company. Good, not legendary. If the story stopped here, you'd never have heard of them. But then, in 2006, Jensen Huang did something that made almost no sense at the time. And it's the single reason NVIDIA rules the world today. He looked at his army of tiny cooks and had a strange thought. These little cooks can fry an egg all at the same time to draw a game. But frying an egg is really just doing one small, simple job over and over, all at once. What if the tiny cooks could do other simple jobs too? Not just draw this dot, but solve this tiny piece of math. What if you could point the whole army at any giant problem that could be chopped into millions of tiny, identical pieces? So NVIDIA built a special tool, a kind of instruction manual that let people teach the army of cooks to do all sorts of math, not just draw pictures. They called it CUDA. And Jensen bet the company on it. He poured money into CUDA for years, even though, at the time, almost nobody was asking for it. Investors thought he was wasting money. A gaming company building tools for scientists? Why? Here's why. Jensen was making a bet that somewhere out there was a giant problem. A problem made of millions of tiny, identical math pieces. That would need his army of cooks. He didn't know exactly what it would be. He just spent years building the road, on faith, before anyone knew where the road led. And in 2012, the thing he was waiting for showed up. Except it wasn't a scientist. It was AI. Some researchers were trying to teach a computer to recognize pictures, to look at a photo and say, that's a cat. And the way you teach a computer to do that is with something called a neural network, which, and this is the whole secret, is basically millions and millions of tiny, simple math problems, all happening at the same time. Sound familiar? It's eggs. It's just eggs. Millions of little identical math eggs that all need to be fried at once. The genius chef, the normal computer brain, was hopelessly slow at it. But NVIDIA's army of tiny cooks running CUDA tore through it. Suddenly, teaching AI got faster, not by a little, but by an insane amount. The AI researchers realized that the perfect machine for building artificial intelligence had already been built by a video game company 6 years earlier for a completely different reason. NVIDIA stopped being a graphics company that day in the minds of anyone paying attention. It had accidentally built the engine of AI before AI even needed it. For a few years, this was a quiet secret shared among AI labs. And then, in late 2022, a little thing called ChatGPT appeared, and the entire world lost its mind over artificial intelligence at the exact same moment. And here is where everything NVIDIA had done for 30 years suddenly paid off all at once. Because every company on Earth now wanted to build AI. And to build AI, you need to fry billions of math eggs, and the army of tiny cooks that does that. The GPU was made overwhelmingly by one company, NVIDIA. Not only did they make the best chips, they had CUDA, which every AI researcher on the planet had already spent a decade learning to use. Switching to a competitor would mean throwing all of that away. It's like the whole world learned to cook in one specific kitchen, and that kitchen belonged to NVIDIA. So picture a gold rush. Thousands of companies suddenly sprinting to dig for AI gold. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, tiny startups, everyone. And in a gold rush, who reliably gets rich? Not most of the diggers. The person selling the shovels. NVIDIA was, and is, the one company selling the shovels. And almost everyone digging for AI has to buy from them. Today, something like 9 out of every 10 AI systems in the world are trained on NVIDIA's chips. Now think about what that does to the money. When you're the only real shovel seller in the biggest gold rush in history, you can charge a fortune. NVIDIA's chips sell for enormous prices, and the company keeps a huge slice of every sale as profit, far more than most companies ever dream of. Money poured in. Its yearly sales exploded, more than doubling in a single year. And the value of the company went vertical. Back in 2012, when the AI story was just beginning, NVIDIA was worth about $7 billion. A nice company. Then, over about 13 years, riding the bet Jensen made in that Denny's and doubled down on in 2006, it climbed. Past 1 trillion, past 2, past 3, past 4. Until in October of 2025, it became the first company in the history of the world to be worth more than $5 trillion. The little gaming chip maker that nearly died in the 90s was now, by far, the most valuable company on Earth. And at the center of it, still, is Jensen Huang, the same man from the booth. Born in Taiwan, sent to America as a kid, now running the company he started over 30 years ago, famous for his black leather jacket and for a simple line that explains his whole strategy. Other companies just sell chips. NVIDIA, he says, builds the factories that make intelligence itself. Now, is there a catch? Of course there is. When one company becomes this important, this fast, people start to ask nervous questions. Is the AI excitement a bubble that could pop? What happens if all these companies spending billions on NVIDIA's shovels don't actually strike gold? Could a competitor finally build a good enough army of their own and break the spell? These are real questions, and smart people argue about them every single day. NVIDIA is powerful, but it isn't magic, and nothing stays on top forever. But step back from all of it, and the thing that's genuinely amazing is the shape of the whole story. NVIDIA did not win by building the AI everyone's talking about. It won by building the thing all of that AI needs to exist, and by building it years before anyone knew they'd need it. It was an army of tiny cooks, invented to draw video games, that turned out to be the perfect machine for creating artificial minds. The most valuable company in the world doesn't make the intelligence. It makes the eggs get fried. Billions and billions of them, all at once. And 30 years ago, that was just 3 guys in a diner, betting that one day, an army of tiny cooks would be worth more than anything else on Earth. They were right.